Hey folks, Jeff Umber here. I am really excited to share a new panel episode with y'all today. This was recorded on May 1st with AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio, and the session was all about what audio producers really need to know about video podcasting. We had an all-star lineup here. It was moderated by Chris Boniello, Podglomerate's VP of Production Services. Chris is an Emmy, Webby, and a Signal Award-winning podcast producer and video editor with over 14 years of production experience, leading commercial video campaigns with folks like Nike, Coca-Cola, Mercedes-Benz, Vice, Comedy Central, Paramount, Spotify, ESPN, and Saturday Night Live. So he knows a lot about video and is slumming it in the podcast trenches with us. So it's very cool to have him moderating this panel to see about how the world of podcasting is trying to integrate into video and what that really means. So for the panelists on this conversation, we had Yi Lee, who is a senior partner manager at Spotify, where you know that they have been digging into video quite a bit lately. We had Chris Colbert, who is the founder and CEO of DCP Entertainment, who is also a previous guest on this show. So you can listen to his episode on this feed for Podcast Perspectives to learn more about what he is up to. And Hayley Rose Danick, who is a creator growth strategist who specializes in helping video creators and brands maximize their presence on YouTube. She worked at YouTube for a long time and has worked with the Podglomerate to figure out like kind of what our strategy will be in the space. So we have people who represent creators, editors, the business side of video podcasting, and then specialists from YouTube and Spotify, which are the two biggest players in the space at this moment in time. This panel is really, really amazing and touches on should you make the leap to video, why video podcasting matters, and essential tips and tactics. So check it out. Again, this aired on May 1st with AIR. And if you didn't know, the Association of Independents in Radio, or AIR for short, is a professional association dedicated to supporting independent creators in the audio industry. AIR's creative community spans the United States and dozens of countries worldwide, made up of journalists, podcasters, story editors, audio producers, documentarians, engineers, sound engineers, and media entrepreneurs. AIR members receive mentorship, training, and peer support throughout their careers, plus discounts on industry tools, conferences, and trainings on SoundPath, a digital platform where you can grow your career. So if you're looking to level up your career in audio, join the AIR community at airmedia.org/join. So without further ado, let's get to the panel. Thank you to AIR and to Chris, Yi, Hayley, and other Chris for putting this all together. And I hope you all enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. So many of you joining us right at the top of the hour. Welcome. This is what audio producers need to know about video. Presented on SoundPath with the Podglomerate and the Association of Independents in Radio. My name is Erin McGregor. I will be in the chat today with my colleague Casper from AIR. Today's presentation is recorded and will be made available on SoundPath within a day or two of today's presentation. We're going to start today's conversation with a moderated conversation, and then we will transition into a Q&A sometime around the 40-minute mark. Please drop your name and location in the chat so we can welcome you. If you're an AIR member, please drop your favorite emoji so we can welcome you. Also, I want to let you know that we're going to be using the Q&A feature today to capture your questions. Please do not put your questions in the chat. They're going to get lost there, and we want to make sure that we capture them. So please use the Q&A feature. We'll remind you in the chat also. And then if you are chatting with other folks today, you are going to want to set your settings to everyone and not just hosts and panelists, so that way everyone in the room can get your messages. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to take a minute to introduce our moderator. Chris Boniello is an Emmy, Webby, and Signal award-winning podcast producer and video editor with over 14 years of production experience, leading commercial video campaigns, TV series, and narrative audio. He's the VP of Production Services at the Podglomerate, here to moderate what audio producers really need to know about video. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Erin. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to AIR for hosting this panel. Video podcasting is probably one of the hottest topics of 2025, so I'm really excited to dive into it with a great group of guests here. As Aaron said, I'm Chris Boniello, the VP of Production Services at The Podglomerate. And The Podglomerate is an award-winning podcast services company that produces, markets, and monetizes audio content. And we represent over 70 podcasts with more than 30 million monthly downloads. And our clients include Netflix, Harvard, History Channel, Lifetime, NPR, PBS, The Progress Network, and many more. Feel free to check out our website and take a look through our blog, which is full of resources about production, and we'll also add our links into the chat. And for today's conversation, we have a great panel to go through what audio producers really need to know about video podcasting. So with me today are Yi Lee, who is the Senior Partner Manager at Spotify, where he partners with major U.S. media publishers to expand their audiences and experiment with some cutting-edge products. Hayley Rose Danick, who is a creator growth specialist, and she specializes in helping video creators and brands maximize their YouTube presence through her company, which is the Upload Club. And then Chris Colbert, who you could also say Colbert if you really want to, because that's the vibe now. He is the CEO and founder of DCP Entertainment, which specializes in producing audio and video content to elevate underrepresented communities and voices, as well as being a podcast creator himself. So today we're going to look at video podcasts across various platforms like Spotify and YouTube to see what a creator or producer should know, what they should invest in, what kind of data they should look at, and if they're willing to make this jump into video production, what they're going to need to know. So to start this off, a little bit of a big question, but to Yi, I had a question about Spotify. They've been rolling out more capabilities for podcasters over the past few months. And could you go into what those entail and why Spotify has chosen now to invest more in video podcasting?
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me here, first of all. I'll take the second question first because I want to talk about the why. As a platform, we really try to listen to two key voices. That's our users and our creators. Really not our own ego. We want to listen to them. And they've been pretty clear in the past few years about what they want. With one voice, they've essentially said, we want more video on Spotify. So we've had video for several years now. I want to say 5 or 6, give or take. But our recent investments are a really direct response to those signals and those voices. The biggest step was the launch of our Spotify Partner Program. This is really exciting because it opens up a new revenue stream for creators who choose to publish video. So there's a lot of seasonality with ads. There's a lot of complexities with ad market, and this doesn't displace that, but this just adds another stream in their revenue. On top of that, when we think about the consumer app for the users, we want to make it as much of a video-friendly experience as possible. So for us, our investments are about how to showcase that content. We talk about in podcasting, how do you do discovery all the time? It's something that if you've been podcasting for 10, 15, 20 years, it's something that's probably, if not the first or second thing you think about. And what we've discovered with videos, if there's just more to play with, there's more context you can provide, whether it's thumbnails or short form clips or copy that really highlights it's a video. So those are just a peek into some of the investments we're working on.
Awesome. Thank you. And on that discoverability side, we've also seen it's really interesting what you can expand out on video. And so to Hayley, to you, I'm wondering, what do you consider a successful video podcast on YouTube now that is such a big discoverability engine for people? What's a benchmark or a metric people could aim for? Do you have any favorite examples of a really successful launch for a video podcast on YouTube?
Yes, I do. I wrote down a little bit of a list because I wanted to be concise about this. So yeah, I don't know if there's other people out there that consume a lot of YouTube, but that's always kind of a helpful place to start just in terms of getting familiar with the platform. If you spend a bit of time just within the podcast tab, which is interesting that exists today now, there's a dedicated tab to podcast content. You'll see so many different kinds of podcasts. I listen to different stuff on different days. And I would say kind of from my own personal preference, the podcasts that I love that I think are doing a really good job. There's Mythical Kitchen, who has been around for a while. I think that he does a really incredible job with his packaging, and packaging is going to come up a lot with me today. You're going to hear me talk about packaging on YouTube, and that means the thumbnail, title, and first few seconds of the video. I'm kind of back and forth with Call Her Daddy. They actually just updated a lot of their thumbnails, so I thought it would be a good example to surface. I listen to Diary of a CEO a lot. And these are all big, massive podcasts like that have huge followings. There are some other podcasts that are worth calling out that are doing a great job on YouTube that are not that big, like Amelia de Moldenberg. She's kind of in the middle range. And then would love to call out Spike's Car Radio, if anyone's a car enthusiast out there, run by a scriptwriter from Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld makes an appearance a lot, but they just brought their YouTube podcast or their podcast onto YouTube, and they've done just an incredible job formulating and translating their content from audio into video. So I just wanted to be sure I called that one out. They're not huge yet on YouTube, but they're in that kind of emerging phase and doing a great job.
That's awesome. I am a car podcast consumer, so I'm well versed in some of the quirks and features of car podcasting world. And on the production side of things, Chris, I've looked through DCP Entertainment's YouTube, and you've got some shorts up there with millions of views. You've got full podcast episodes with hundreds of thousands of views. So what kind of changes did you make on the production side of things, not just for YouTube or Spotify specifically, but when you were moving into this video space from audio content to really have these sort of success stories?
Well, I'll be honest, we actually were always doing video since the inception of our company back in 2018. But I think we've definitely gotten a lot smarter. We used to spend way too much money, and now we're, being a lot more cost effective with it, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But I think, being intentional about how we're using shorts to lead generate back to full video, because shorts obviously has been more of a newer, kind of evolution in the YouTube space. So, using 3 or 4 different shorts that capture people's attention, those tend to get the most kind of views. As you said, we'll sometimes get millions there. And then that now, takes them from that into that full length piece of content to see more of it or see more of that conversation or that individual. So we've now gotten really intentional about how we use our marketing funnel to take you from those shorts or even on social media into the actual full content. And that is through calls to action there, whether it be in the caption to say, hey, there's a full video that exists. Because I think sometimes we assume that the audience already knows that, oh, this came from a podcast, let me go find more of it. No, you need to tell them, whether it's an end screen or something in the description, or using those things like recommended video on your shorts to then take you directly when you click that link into the full video. So, just from, the earliest standpoints of how you can use YouTube specifically, it's using those shorts, using the recommended by, and then, lead generating that back to the full video. And that's really had us take off. The other thing I'd mention too is that we've realize the topics that work best for us on social media, that work best on YouTube, which is comedy and music, things that are generating towards those kind of conversations or featuring artists or comedians work really well. Because if you think about your own use of YouTube, a lot of times you're looking for songs or you're looking for a comedy bit, and then you end up discovering your favorite comedian or artist talking about their work. So, we've actually really leaned into those kind of projects when we're focusing on YouTube, because that's where we tend to get our most views.
Great. And in that world of packaging and using those extra tools and features, I was wondering, Yi, is there anything coming up or with these features at Spotify that we should be looking at, similar to what people are engaging with at YouTube right now?
It's really funny, Chris. See, you kept bringing up the shorts on the YouTube side and how that it's part of your long form world. We're doing the same thing. I think when several companies are doing the same thing, it's something to pay attention to. On our side, I think we have a unique advantage because there's so much loyalty and retention for Spotify. Like, you go to Spotify for a bunch of things, obviously music, and now audiobooks, and there's podcasts. So it becomes a one-stop shop. And then what we're hoping with our clips, essentially also short form vertical video, what that will do is actually eliminate a lot of that friction. So if you are discovering something on one of the other social platforms, TikTok or Instagram, but your listening habits for your long form podcast on Spotify, there is friction there to jump between apps. You might as well just keep scrolling. What we are hoping to do on the Spotify side is that when you discover something from us, whether it's a horizontal preview or a vertical clip, is that you can do exactly what Chris just said, you can go directly to that podcast, that episode that you already had saved in your library, or you can save it for later.
That's great. And throwing this back to you, Chris, this might be a little too broad of a question, but I was interested in your comment about going from, scaling things down, figure out what works best at the price points. Is there something you found as your essential entry equipment for a video podcast, coming from, someone who's creating something just audio only at home, and how they can break into this without going too crazy or spending too much money and making a mistake and going backwards?
Yeah, I'd say especially for those who have a really, really tight budget, or just really stepping into it. I think those, remote recording platforms like a Riverside or a Squadcast are super helpful, even if you do happen to be in the same city as your guest. But maybe you don't have a bunch of, money for cameras. Okay, someone has their own webcam, you have your own webcam, and so you can record that way. And then the beauty of these platforms now, both of them, whether it's Squadcast and their integration with the script, or whether it be, Riverside and their onboard platform, where after you're done recording, you can actually do the editing right there. And you don't have to be an expert in video editing or even audio editing, because they have a lot of tools that allow you to use the text to be able to make those edits and actually be able to add in graphics and things like that, where you might in the past have spent hundreds, thousands usually of dollars to be able to do each episode. And now this cuts $2,000, $3,000 off your cost. The other great thing with those is that it'll help you identify those, those shorts that we were just talking about, whether it be for Spotify or for YouTube or social media, and it'll help you cut those and create them in engaging ways. And so I feel like that's probably the main entry point for folks just looking to step into video. Whether your guest is in your location, you might want to look at using a Riverside or a Squadcast to help you record that, so that the back end editing is a lot easier and cheaper for yourself.
Great. And I saw a question down in the Q&A about shorts and what is a short. And I was wondering, since that's a term that's more YouTube specific, but it does kind of clip out to other platforms. Hayley, would you mind jumping in and explaining what a short is and why it's useful, and how you can even access, your audience through packaging of a short and beyond that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I love shorts. I'm kind of obsessed with them. That was the first thing I worked on at YouTube. So I know them well. A short is defined on YouTube. Initially, it was just a video that is vertical, so not horizontal, but vertically filmed. Originally, it was defined by a video that was 0 to 60 seconds. They actually extended that to 3 minutes pretty recently. So you can now upload a vertical video that's under 3 minutes, and it would be considered a short, which means that it's actually surfaced to the viewer in a very different way than long form. So in YouTube, it's really important to understand the differences in consumption in terms of behavior with shorts content and long form content within the app. It's very different to how content is served up in Spotify and other podcast platforms. Shorts are actually served to you. So there's a feed very similar to TikTok, where YouTube is making the decision for you. It's serving up the short in different successions, in different kind of flows based on your watch history. And then long form, in contrast, is also served up to you in a feed, but then you make the final decision as the viewer to watch it. And your decision is based on, does this thumbnail sound fun and interesting or cool or compelling to me? You click through, you watch, and then you decide to stick around or not. Shorts are super interesting because they're a really new format to YouTube, but YouTube's old. It just hit its 20th birthday a couple days ago. It's pretty wild. It's been around for a couple decades already. Shorts is still a very new format, and almost a format that kind of exists in isolation on YouTube. And what I mean by that is that what we see at Upload Club is that creators often have very different audiences that consume their shorts versus their long form. And that's going to be different for every creator out there. But here's an interesting story that might kind of help you understand the power of shorts. I used to work with really big TikTokers that we onboarded onto YouTube, grew them really quickly just with shorts. Then they ventured into creating long form, but they really struggled with bringing that short form audience onto long form, and they still are. You basically, when you create a shorts audience, or you create an audience just off of the shorts format, they are looking for that same kind of content. You have to really work to translate them over into a longer format type of video. I actually kind of think that you're really starting from scratch. And then vice versa. When you start to create, let's say you're an audio podcast, you brought your podcast onto YouTube that has a video component, you've grown those video episodes up to a point, then you start playing around with shorts. At that point, it can sometimes be an effective tool to bring traffic to your long form, but more times than not, I would almost recommend on building the traffic that's coming to your long form content organically. Short form, it's a pretty big challenge. There's a lot of friction, like same word that you used in terms of bringing that viewer from shorts to long form. So there's many exceptions, many different rules, but if I were to leave you guys with one thing, I would really try to think of designing 2 different content slates, one for shorts and one for long form. If you get too caught up in thinking about how the 2 work together, you lose sight of the value that you're delivering or you would like to deliver in, or I would like you to deliver in the long form, basically.
Awesome. Thank you. And Yi, is that similar on the clip side of things with Spotify? I know there's a bit more guardrails for 30 seconds, I believe.
There's a few differences. For us, it's up to 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Yeah, I agree almost with everything Hayley just said. You do have to think about it almost separately. On our side, I think we're excited about it just because it gives more context. Like I was saying at the beginning, when you think about like an audio podcast, what are the avenues or inputs you can get to like get someone hooked in, right? It's essentially what cover art, maybe copy, essentially a trailer, and those things have been working really, like cross promos. Those things have worked really well. But now we just expanded our tool set like 2x or 3x, and this just gives more of that insight. So when you think about shorts or clips, I think you want to challenge yourself to think about it as almost like a mini trailer for every single episode. And how do you get them hooked in?
Awesome. And expanding out from shorts to full episodes here, I was wondering, Yi, on the Spotify side of things, have you guys had any narrative shows that were audio only that you've moved into a video realm, that you found success with that, either in adding some sort of audiogram element, graphic design, animation, or even going and filming assets?
Very early days. Right now we want to make the transition as easy as possible on our side. And there's so many folks who are essentially just talking. And I think that's the easiest mode to do. I think one thing I'll actually pull back and say is, like, as a platform for us at Spotify, we consider ourselves, always have been, and right now still, an audio first platform. We think video essentially just adds another layer, and we're very enthusiastic about video, as you've read and seen and hearing my voice now. But I also want to say, like, it's not for everyone. So for many narrative podcasts, I think it could work if I know the LA Times is doing a few that are really interesting. But if it doesn't work, you're really, jamming a square peg into a round hole, and it does cost more money to do so. So I think it's really a question you have to ask yourself, but also ask, what do your fans want? What do your users want? I said at the beginning that as a platform, a majority of our users want more video. That may not be true for some narrative podcasts who only want audio. So I think it's a very personal decision for every podcast to make. In terms of what's been working, a lot of it has been more conversational podcasts, both big and small. But I am not a creator. And I think that as video becomes more and more of a mainstream topic in these areas, I expect within a few months, I'm going to come back and say, you got to see these 5 or 10 things that are really pushing the edge. Like, creators are always the ones that see what a platform does, and they push us towards something that we didn't notice before. So I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Awesome. And in that creator space, Chris, as someone who creates, produces, owns a company, going through all of these hoops here, is there things you're looking at in these initial conversations when you're going to make a video project, whether it be a talking head show, whether it be something more narrative driven or animation driven? Are there a few mistakes you always try to avoid now that you've done it so many times, or a few things you check off saying, hey, here's where the ceiling's got to be, and we should stop here, and this is where the content's going to be good and get a good engagement compared to spending a bunch more money?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we literally ask the question, is this an audio first podcast or is this a video first podcast? And it's not to say that you're not prioritizing the other medium, but it is saying that, okay, I'm going to invest a lot of our time and strategy to this platform because we know that's where our audience is. So it is, actually, I'm sorry to take it one step back. What is our goal? What audience are we trying to reach? And what platforms are they using? Are they primarily, are they primarily discovering their podcast on YouTube, or are they primarily discovering it in the audio format? And so, that's where we start. And then once we know that, then we can adjust our strategies. Okay, this audience is more on YouTube. Can we create moments in this podcast that are heavily emotional, whether it be happy emotion, whether it be sad? If you even think about like how you're washing dishes and watching TV, a lot of times you have your head down until something, big happens. And then you look up, you want to see, what's going on the screen? I think it's a similar thing, especially with the younger Gen Z audience. That's how they ingest podcasts. So, thinking about that intentionally and, okay, how can I insert elements or even if it's interview format, how can I insert questions that are going to create these emotional responses, whether it be from your guest or whether it be them saying something that now you emotionally respond to? And then also, are there visuals? Is there like a show and tell element that you can put to it? So that's when we would lean into video first. But then there's also the core of where I came from. I worked in radio many years. And though I said we started this company always thinking about video, I'm an audiophile. I love the theater of the mind aspect. And so, especially as he was saying, like with those narrative-based podcasts, like those are really special and something that we can't lose in this industry. So for those ones, okay, maybe this is an audio first podcast and maybe we just have clips that we put out and we do a little bit of animation or stop motion graphics or, something there that helps to maybe engage a new audience that ingests differently into the audio experience, but maybe you don't have to spend all this money to pay for a full episode. So I think from the beginning, that's where we try to start from. That way, as you were saying, we're not wasting money just trying to go along with what everybody else is doing in video.
Awesome. And Hayley, in that video world, if someone is looking to build out kind of a hybrid format, if it's animation or a talking head or something that fits within their budget, are you still finding that YouTube will help grow that audience, or is there a plateau there? What kind of tools can people use if they're limited by their budget, but they want to get their stuff up on YouTube? Is that going to help grow their audience?
Will it help grow their audience if they use only like animation or talking head? Or you're saying around the format specifically?
Yeah. If they're going to make sure, hey, we have this audio content. We want to kind of trying to find a hybrid way to put it on video. Should we still put it up on YouTube? Is that worth it to grow?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always come from the like kind of philosophy when it comes to YouTube strategy that it's better to get your content up than not do it. Like I kind of feel like the only mistake you can make is just to not get that content live. And what I mean by that is as someone who's seen a lot of YouTube channels in so many different phases, there's just so many different ways to success, so many different paths to growing. And I think when it comes to podcasts that are coming onto YouTube, especially if you have a smaller budget or if you're just not familiar with the platform, the best way to learn and to grow is to get started and getting in those reps. Like I think of it as going to the gym and just every day, like getting in a few bicep curls, every week you're uploading content to YouTube, you're learning more about the platform. You're seeing what kind of a reaction the algorithm has to it. You're not going to, for example, like shoot yourself in the foot by bringing a looped animation or a static image, associating that with your audio file and getting it onto YouTube. I know for sure it will perform better if you have maybe a more engaging animation or you have an actual talking head with visual supplements. That's just going to likely perform better over time. But I think it's still, like, if you have limited resources and budget, I think it's still worth experimenting with getting things onto YouTube, because again, YouTube is really just about the long game. It's a slow burn.
Yeah. And Yi, on the Spotify side, do you find that true for smaller creators, people who are a bit budget limited, looking to produce a video side to their audio content? Is it helpful just to keep doing those reps, putting that up on Spotify and help encourage more engagement there?
Yeah, reps is massive. It's funny, Hayley. I used the bicep curl now it's a lot of time on my side too. I'm like, even before this, we started Spotify partner program, and I was talking to folks about video since, I don't know, 2023, 2022. I said it's gonna happen, so you might as well put in the work now, right? And there is a early mover advantage on this stuff, and right now, we have over 6 million podcasts on Spotify. Uh, there's a growing number of video podcasts, but it's still a minority when you think about the entire podcast landscape. There's a real opportunity here. I told you, folks are leaning into video. You see that on Spotify. You see with the growth of podcasts on YouTube, people want it. So even if you're not sure and you have the ability to do it and you think your fans will like it, I think putting in that work is going to go a long way. There's an audience there and there's a gap for content.
And then with that content, Chris, on the production side of things and putting out, all these reps, all this video for all these years, are you seeing that is beneficial for when you're having conversations for branding, for marketing, for cross promos to come to the table and say, hey, look, we've also got all this video content and these extra assets compared to simply audio being uploaded?
Oh, absolutely. And even just from the simple standpoint of, there's lots of data in this last year or two. Sounds Profitable put a lot of it out there of this is how people are discovering podcasts. Even if they mainly listen on Spotify or mainly listen on Apple, or whatever the platform may be, a lot of, people are now discovering on YouTube because it is the second biggest search engine powered by the first biggest search engine. But then to your point too, it just gives you another platform to be able to play with for marketing, for sales opportunities. Yes, there's the built-in span marketplace on Spotify. There's the built-in, YouTube ad marketplace. But now you can also have, product placement. I could, literally on this shelf have something that you can buy and, click right on while we're doing the video. And so it gives you all this freedom to play around with, to do affiliate marketing, to be able to do, additional sales. And then also to your point too, of just marketing in general. If I have my own book, I can literally have it sitting here while we're talking. And now that maybe makes me some residual income at the same time. So yeah, I definitely think that video adds an additional element that can help you market and also make revenue. And just to double back to your question earlier, one thing I forgot to also mention in terms of what do we think about when we're doing a video podcast is, how are we going to edit it? It's not just like audio where you can just, clip and then, we can make a seamless edit and no one notices. If you don't have a second video camera or another way to be able to punch in, and when I say punch in, you see me here and then we can get even closer. If we don't have that, then when you make an edit, it feels very jumpy. So you have to think through how are you shooting? That way you can edit in a way that's going to feel seamless for your audience.
Awesome. And then I've got a question for the whole panel. You can fight over who wants to answer first, but is there a benchmark or a metric that you recommend that people aim for in this early space as they're moving from audio into video, whether that be a specific number of plays or consumption rate?
I'll start. As a partner manager, on my side, every podcast is really different. So I think under my purview, I think I look after 1,000 podcasts, and I kind of track their growth and how they're doing, and it's really impossible to do an apples to apples comparison. There's different publishing cadences, there's different formats, there's different storytelling, different fan bases. So I don't think there's a silver bullet on my end. I just want to see incremental growth quarter over quarter. I want to see that there are new listeners coming. I want to see that there's followers being added as well. That follow button on our side, that subscribe button on YouTube and Apple, I think it's the same thing. It really feeds the system for these platforms to say, hey, I'm interested. I want to see more. And I think when we see more of that interest and intent, it gives us as a platform, as a recommendation engine, way more confidence to send it out back to you to remind you, hey, there's a new episode, or to send it to folks who are like you, who also listen to the same content. So for me, it's a lot about followers, and it's a lot about just incremental growth for overall listeners and streams.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I think, when I just talk on the YouTube side for us, I look at kind of like you were saying, I'm looking at shorts differently than I'm looking at full content, full episode content. On the short side, I'm looking at subscriber growth. for me, to me, it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, yes, the reach is great, but I want to see that people are engaging with this and now want to get more of it on my page. And now by subscribing, they're going to get alerts when we're putting stuff up. So for me, shorts are all about subscriber growth. Whereas on the full length episodes, I am looking at that average consumption rate a little bit more. Are we, where are those drop offs happening? And, as we're saying before, there's no apples to apples here. So every piece of content, every topic, every guest is going to be a little bit different. And so I want to see, okay, where's that drop off happening? And can we see a pattern in where in the conversation that's happening? Do we need to change the flow of how we're doing this? Are we, not engaging them visually? And so that's why they're dropping off. So yeah, it's just, really looking at the data and just trying to make comparisons. But again, treating the short content separate of that full length content.
Yeah, I agree. You also might hear my cat join the conversation. Sorry in advance. Agree with what these two lovely gentlemen have said. And I think that I'll just sort of echo what they have said, just in the sense that, especially if you're getting started on YouTube, I think it's really important to not get too bogged down in the numbers. However, it's important to actually be observing them all the time. So can you kind of watch them without feeling too judgmental about what they look like? But there's always some kind of fantastic hidden pattern or message in the numbers, because there's so much detail with YouTube Studio. There's this thing called retention graphs, for example, on YouTube, where you can look to see how you have retained someone throughout the course of a video. You not only can look at the graph, but you can download a spreadsheet that tells you at every percentage point, basically at every second in the video, how many people were there and left. And so what that allows you to do is understand at what point in the video did people get bored? Did they get frustrated? Basically, most importantly, did they leave? So anyway, to wrap that up, I think as long as you're seeing consistent growth over time, it's okay if there's a lot of fluctuation, especially in terms of views. And then the other thing is just making sure you're getting familiar with all the metrics. The metrics that I think really matter are impressions, click-through rate, of course, views, because that's what you're getting paid out on. But really understanding the retention curve or the retention graph that they give you.
One other piece of data I want to throw in there, by the way, for YouTube specifically, is just like, I love also, you can see how do people find your content. So like the allocation and where it's coming from. And so I love to look at my searches, and of the searches, what are the things that people are typing in? And that helps me inform my metadata for later. What kind of descriptions should I use? What kind of titles should I use? Because now I know how my audiences have already found me, so I can duplicate that.
And yeah, are we going to see similar things like that on the Spotify side, where people who are doing video creation are going to be able to have the sort of data that is so important on YouTube?
I love some of that search stuff that Chris just brought up. I'm going to bring that back to our product team. I think that's so cool and interesting. On our end, first of all, on the audio side, we have a very robust analytics as well. I think what Hayley was just describing about like drop off, we have that for years now on the Spotify for Creator side. When you add video, we essentially bring additional layer of insight. So the metrics that we will now include with video is total time engaged, hours listened, and the percentage of that content that was viewed in the foreground. So, it could be an entire video, but maybe they were just kind of watching it for 40% or 80%, and that should be interesting data as well.
I also, by the way, for Spotify, I love that I can see like what artists my audience listens to. So like if I'm a topical kind of show, then I can lean into talking about the kind of artist that I know that my audience listens to. So like there's already great tools on Spotify for that too.
And demographic stuff, I think for a lot of platforms that can help inform like who's my audience, but also where should I lean into when it comes to like cross promotion or guesting on another podcast.
And yeah, on the Spotify side, talking about looking at those percentages of what people are viewing, since Spotify has the capability to toggle between audio and video, and you can move the app around and have kind of picture in picture as well as just an audio player if you're in something like CarPlay. Do you have any insight there to what encourages an audience to watch the video versus simply listening to the audio?
We don't have any insight to that, but I will say that we are incredibly proud of that feature. So last year we did a survey. Of our users, and we asked them, do you want video? And overwhelming majority said yes. But of the folks who said they want video, half of them said, we just want the option of video, which we found really interesting. The other half were like, I just want video all the time. But the first half said, we want to go back and forth. We want to go back and forth between audio and video. And that made so much sense to me. Not to tout, our own podcast, but Bill Simmons' podcast, big fan. I'm literally listening to it today. And I'm going from, I had to drop off my kid. I started in the kitchen making breakfast, and I drop off my kid, and then I had to come back, and then I'm back on my desktop, and then I had to make an errand. Like, in that entire 2-hour podcast, I must have switched like 4 devices, but also go back and forth between watching it on a desktop, on a phone, and an iPad, but also listening to it while I'm doing chores. So I think that optionality has actually been a really cool point for Spotify when it comes to that, going back and forth. And for us, it's not we're not seeing it as a win yet, that like we want to increase the foreground activity. I think the win is like, is your overall consumption, is your overall listeners going up? And that optionality is something that's coming into play.
And are creators going to be able to see when a user switches video to audio and that sort of percentage that they're consuming?
I take that back. Not yet, but I think that's a really interesting insight.
Cool. That's awesome. From the Q&A section, we have a highly upvoted question, which I think could kind of go towards Hayley. What are the benefits of building a shorts audience if it isn't always a way to hook people back into your full episodes?
Whoa, that's a deep question. And honestly, one I have wrestled with and had many phases with, because I've worked with creators that have been shorts first. And I've also worked with established YouTube creators that were long form, but then ventured into shorts, and that kind of cannibalized their long form audience. And it was a big mess. And I don't work at YouTube anymore, so I can kind of say those things. Like, I could also talk more offline about this, but like, shorts is an incredible tool for growth. But I think that to take a step back, like what you just want to make sure you're doing is just getting clear on your goals, and then understanding how YouTube can help you hit those goals. If you're trying to grow quickly, get really good at making bite-sized pieces of content that are standalone pieces of content, again, not cut downs of your podcast episode. Those can do okay, but I have found that shorts that are specifically scripted, for that 60 seconds or 90 seconds do much better than podcast cut downs. If you're wanting to just grow really quickly and drive a large audience that's subscribed to you by shorts, that can be useful to an extent. I mean, what's really tough is then, those subscribers are not really subscribed to you to have a deep connection with you. They kind of are there to consume your shorts content and be entertained for small spurts. But if you're able to really pursue a long form strategy and focus on that, build subscribers from that, I think that there is a much bigger ROI on long form followership or subscribership in comparison to shorts. So what I'm getting at is, like, I don't want to like totally say shorts are not useful, because I think that there are exceptions to that and they're very effective for growth. But I think if your goal is to try to grow an incremental new audience on YouTube for your existing podcast, I would really prioritize long form. Shorts can be used at some point for experimentation. But, for example, I think the only reason where shorts would be valuable is if you first built an audience on shorts, built a really big one based on like a relevant topic or adjacent topic to the pod, and then leverage that as a way to push traffic to the longer form episodes. But you always have to have realistic expectations there. It's a lot to, again, ask someone to move from a short form video, even if it's a part of the podcast episode. It's a lot to ask them to move from that to a longer form video. If you catch them in the right spot, maybe they're on a walk or they're waiting in a doctor's office, they have the time to do that, great. But if not, you could suffer from decreased average view percentage. What I mean by that is someone could go from the short to the long form and be like, ooh, I don't want to watch a long form. And then they just get out of there. And that's not a great kind of like supporting point for YouTube. They're like, oh, this video is not good if people are not sticking around to watch the full thing.
I find myself doing that with a lot of cooking videos where in the short, they get it done so fast and it looks delicious. And then I click on the full one and I don't have a half hour and I'm not actually going to cook it, but I just wanted to see it look good. So I've probably messed up a few people's numbers in my day. And on that side of things, where you're looking at mixing your assets from shorts to full video and audio only. Chris, on some of your shows, are you doing different versions for an audio only version versus a video version? That was a challenge that we even at the Podglomerate had, where we were looking at some of our shows to say, hey, we really cut this audio down, but if we're going to do a video version, like you were mentioning earlier, it's going to have a bunch of punch in, punch outs, jump cuts. Are we okay with that? I see Gen Z kids watching crazy jump cuts all the time, and I'm like, coming from a video editing background, it makes me crazy, but it works. It's like the French New Wave all over again. So do you find yourself making multiple assets for that one deliverable, or are you trying to find a middle ground there?
Trying to find a middle ground. When we first started, I very much, and it's been a conversation a lot lately, I've been noticing in different chats and stuff of like, yeah, you create a different product specific for the audio listening audience, and then, a different version for the video watching audience. That can get expensive. And that's actually what we did early on, where we would have, like, we had this mental health show where it would feature 3 different people talking about a similar subject matter, but it's only cutouts from the full interview. So for the audio podcast, we're giving you essentially these vignettes of people talking about the same topics. And then you can go to our YouTube to get the full length conversation with each individual person. And that worked in some respects. Like our Wayne Brady one, like, went through the roof on the video side. But as a whole, like, we ended up spending more money than we really made back for that. So we try to now thread the needle in between. And that's where it goes back to what I was kind of saying in the beginning of, okay, let's talk through what is the main platform we're trying to achieve with, and let the other one kind of be more of an add-on, as opposed to trying to tackle both with the same gusto that we, that we have. Now, if you have a lot of money or have a large team, then maybe you can do that. But I think a lot of people here are kind of bootstrapping it. And so that's where I'd try to focus on one and then see where you can thread the needle to make the other one work.
Yeah, would you say that holds true for Spotify as well, since you can flip between audio and video? It's hitting that middle ground now.
Yeah, I think that's what we think, and that's what we feel, and I think that you really need to start thinking about your audience, both knowing that people like to switch back and forth. So how do you play to that audience? But you also know your audience. So I see a lot of comments, and it's like, one word that I haven't heard today yet on this panel that was always in every single podcasting panel that's actually very true for video podcasting is authenticity. And for the longest time for podcasting is about, you have to be authentic. That's the whole thing about the audio business. I actually think video podcasting is even more true. And when you have to think about authenticity in the way that you are producing, in the way that you're hosting, but also in the way that you're reaching folks. If you're doing video just for like an easy grab at more audience, like, it's going to show, and I think when you're very intentional about why you're doing video and who's it for, and that your listeners are going back and forth, then I think having that intentionality and authenticity will really speak volumes.
Awesome. And that came from Emily Reeves. I'm now jumping into the audience Q&A. It's been filling up the whole time here. I know we've got plenty more we could cover, and probably have to do another few of these. From Theo here is wondering, I could throw this to the whole panel, but are there some resources for audio producers that are looking to learn how to make video that you would find, top of stack that you want to hit?
The ones I mentioned before, Riverside Squadcast, again, because they have that back end editing that really helps. Obviously, the recording part is very nice as well. I think those are great. There's also certain AI tools out there, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but happy to talk to folks on the side and consult there. But there are also certain AI tools that will take multiple cameras and do an initial cut for you. And essentially, in talking to video editors, this saves even professional video editors 2 hours of time.
Yeah, Autopod is a pretty fun one.
Yep, there you go. So, and there's great variations there. Even when you get down to the metadata, like, we haven't touched on it a lot here, but we've kind of talked about it a little bit. Like, that's super important. How are you writing descriptions and titles? And so there's definitely a lot of AI tools out there. I know I personally like FlowSend, where it will just comb through my transcript, and much like ChatGPT, you can teach it how to pull stuff for you, and it'll give you the kind of descriptions and the titles that will help you to convert a little bit better on these platforms. So I think all those different kind of tools can be really helpful here.
Hayley, do you have any secret AI tools for people when looking to help them with their packaging, since it's such a big deal going into video from audio?
The best secret I can tell you is to hire Upload Club. No, I don't have anything to add. That's really helpful. There's a couple of other directors, producers that I work with specifically on podcast content. So if anyone's also looking to hire those kinds of resources, a lot of folks are out there that have that expertise that make the process really seamless onto video.
And then I just want to add, I have no tools. I defer to Chris there. On my end, I think what we believe is that the barrier of entry for video, while higher than audio, should also be low. I think it's about authenticity. I think there's a lot of fear, especially when you think about the publishers that I work with who are used to being on network television, hair and makeup, like studio. No, if you can afford it and it looks natural, great. But the thing with Riverside and all these other tools is it's about just having a conversation and breaking down those walls. And you don't need an expensive setup. You don't need an hour in the chair of hair and makeup. That would drive everyone insane. There'll be far less podcasts and video podcasts after that. I think the reality, and people see right through it. Some of the biggest podcasts right now, All In, as an example, it's just 4 dudes on Zoom. They definitely don't do hair and makeup. I can tell you that, right? And I think that's okay. I think they want to hear from the voice. They just want to hear from the person, the authentic person there. So I just want to throw that 2 cents in.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point and something I'm always talking to people about when they're asking about budget, equipment, tools, and things, that sometimes it's scaling it back down to just being an authentic voice. And even in terms of editing, if there's a jump cut there or something weird happens, a cat goes across the screen or barks, sometimes it's easier to laugh at it and be honest with your audience and tell them, hey, the dog ran across here and pulled my headphones off my head, versus trying to edit around it, re-engineer it. And it helps create that engagement directly with your audience, because a lot of times people are consuming right in their head and they're out on a walk, and it's much more personal in the consumption side of things than it feels like sometimes for coming from the creator side. And I think that gets lost in post-production a bit, trying to fix too many errors that can be really endearing for an audience, especially if they're just there listening to you.
I'd love to add to that but I think that's such an important point, and something that I think can be kind of applied to a lot of things is I don't think people want it to look perfect. I think that they want it to be valuable and they want it to be engaging. And I think one of the kind of challenges I help a lot of clients overcome is that sort of like it needs to be perfect before it goes live. And that prevents you from getting in the reps, getting the uploads, onto the channel, and the learning and the growth happens after you get, the content up. So I think that's just really important to remember walking away from is, if you're thinking about producing video content and you're moving from audio, the expectations in terms of quality don't need to be, far and above. It can just be hanging in the living room. Chris has a perfect setup. That might be too nice.
Come on over to Podstream Studios.
Both Chris's, actually. Yeah. I got to level it up.
If I'm asking people to produce podcasts with us, we got to look and sound good. Interesting question here in the chat from Sarah. I can pose this out to the full panel, and then I think it'd be interesting for Yi to pull in from the Spotify side of things. But why do you think audiences are driven towards video now? And are these the same audiences who are listening to the audio only podcasts? Or is this world of YouTube versus Spotify driving kind of a race to the top to get more market share in terms of video?
That's for me first?
Sure. Hop on in.
I'll go first. It's a bit of a chicken or egg question, and it's really hard to answer. And I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure, and I don't know. But I do know that what's driving it, I do know that it's happening. Is it because their favorite hosts are now on video, and therefore they're used to it? They become it's become normalized is what their expectation is. Very possible. Is it because when we think about younger audiences as like the core, I'm a very hard, like down the line millennial, as we age up and these younger folks come in, like they grew up in an age of YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and visual has always been part of their component. And I think we're learning from them as well. And many of them have become creators, especially in a post-COVID world. We saw a lot of this spring up when people were stuck at home. And I think when you're stuck at home, became a lot more video, and a lot more authentic. Like I'm in my bed, just talking. So I think it's real. I don't think it is a rat race between platforms. It's a very expensive investment for platforms. So platforms would only be doing it if they know and they see, and we know and we see what our fans and our users and creators are telling us.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, everything you said is right on. That's what we've seen as well. I actually even had, I'm also a millennial, but I had a Gen Z, person live with me for a little while going to college. And it was interesting watching them ingest YouTube. Like, it's just on in the background. They're not even looking at it half the time. That's just, but they're so used to having video with everything. And that now has a trickle effect into the older generations, millennials and so on and so forth, where because we're now on social media so much, it's just ingrained in us that, it has to have video. And so, yeah, I personally think it is a little bit of that. I also think it really is just the fact that these are really powerful search engines, YouTube being a really powerful search engine. So they just happen to stumble on it. And we're in this phase of, trying to define what a podcast is. And I've always been on the side of we don't define it, our audience does. Well, we're just creating digital content. And that's the way I always look at this. And so, people find our digital content on YouTube because of the search engine aspect and because of the way that the algorithms work and all that. Video tends to perform better there. And so I do think that that's why we're seeing a lot of people discovering video podcasts and then maybe eventually moving over to the audio.
And this might be yeah, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I was going to throw a curveball, so let's stay on topic here.
Ooh, I'll just add a little story that never mind. Anyway, I used to work on the podcast acquisition team. So 3-4 years ago, we were begging people to come onto YouTube. We were begging audio podcasts to come onto YouTube. And now people they understand the value, they understand why, which is amazing. But I kind of bring that up because I think it kind of taps into this, why come to YouTube. I think, again, like what you said, it's a bit chicken or the egg. Like, I think YouTube proved the value of having a video component, which is that, and Andrew Huberman actually talks a lot about this in a couple of early episodes, that he and his team found that viewers or consumers, listeners were far more engaged with the video than just the audio. So it's kind of a marketing tactic. If you have a video component associated and you've got a guy in the same outfit, same time, same look and vibe, that's going to be a familiar thing to them. They build a closer connection with Andrew the human versus just Andrew the voice. So I think that was kind of at the root of why there were a lot of podcasts that actually just did come onto YouTube and have continued to stay there, because there is value in that that component of engagement. But I do think, like, as everyone has said today, you just have to evaluate it for yourself. Like, YouTube has an agenda. If that is the right agenda for you to bring video onto your podcast, great. But it might not fully make sense, and it's up to you, and it's all good.
In that world of not fully making sense, this was a bit about my curveball, but I was wondering, do you have any examples from any of the Spotify shows that you would say should just stay to audio and not take the dive into video from everything we're kind of learning about what it takes to get into that world?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to some of those narrative podcasts. I think narrative podcasts or even daily shows. I'm not going to say names, but I think there are some shows that are, you can tell, they're so heavily produced, and it's beautiful that way. Like, it is beautiful as a heavily produced audio show. And I know, just talking to the producers there, that it just wouldn't work. Like, you would be transforming the entire DNA of that show. I think when I say that, I hope everyone already knows the type of shows that you would be thinking about. I think those shows should just stick to audio. I think you're changing the DNA of your show if you take that away, where it's highly produced audio. It's not for everyone, and I think there's we want to still be a place where there's a sacred space for that type of content, and those shows are still growing too.
Yeah, I agree there. I think podcasting is such a huge realm and such a broad spectrum that, at a certain point, you're either reverse recreating true crime documentaries, you're trying to film people around a tabletop game and annoying everyone in the whole process because the lighting isn't right and you're catching the other cameraman on the other side. So there's pros and cons all around this. On the YouTube side of things, Hayley, as someone who's working directly with creators, is it tough to look at YouTube as a quote unquote partner because they can change their algorithm so quickly and out of nowhere? Is there a detective work needed there?
Oh no, I would always YouTube is on your side. It's like an incredible, magical, free distribution platform. It's just a matter of time and the kind of magical thing that happens over time as you get more reps in, you just get better at the content and the quality, and YouTube will reward you. It just takes longer than TikTok or Instagram. The algorithm is the audience. It's not really the algorithm that is changing. It's the tastes and preferences of the audience. So if you're not seeing a response, it's because you're not able to capture what the audience is looking for. Alternatively, though, if you're starting from scratch and you just haven't, kind of made that click or flip the switch, just keep trying and try different angles. Because I promise you, I become more obsessed with YouTube every week because I see how much it benefits people over time and how it is working for you, especially when you get to certain sizes.
Awesome. And in that YouTube world, this is a question from Dustin. I know I haven't read everyone's names, and thank you all for all the questions. They've been coming in very quickly. For Chris, would you suggest that people are posting both on the YouTube podcast area as well as their general YouTube page? And within those playlists, is there something you're finding successful as someone who's been posting video for so long?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Do you find it helpful and beneficial for people to post within YouTube podcasts or just within their page and building those playlists?
I do one. I don't like trying to send people to too many different places, especially on the same platform. So yeah, for us, like our Tory show is a great example. We physically put up Tory show videos, so we don't then ingest the RSS feed of Tory show also on YouTube. That's just our personal preference. It's just, let's make it one-stop shop for them. But I think, as we've been saying here, I don't think that there's a magic bullet for any of this. I think it's test out what works for you. See, play around. I think, especially if you're just starting out with it, play around with both and see where the audience goes. And then where the audience goes is what you stick with. So yeah, I think, play around with it for yourself. You can't really lose much outside of, obviously on the video side, if you're getting into it, there's some money involved. But again, if you're already doing video, it doesn't hurt to be able to try these, both strategies out.
Awesome. And as we're reaching time here, I just wanted to thank everyone for all of these questions. And then I've got one quick question in the group. Well, let's start with Hayley, then go to Chris, then to Yi. If you've got one quick tip that you could give to anyone dipping their toes into video podcasting, what would it be?
Just get started. Just do it, Nike.
Define your goals before you get started, and define your goals and define your audience, and that's going to give you the roadmap for success.
And mine would be true to yourself. If you're doing video just because a few smart people in this panel told you that it's the way of the future and that's the only reason, I'll probably do some more thinking about it. It has to match your content. Be true to yourself and your content.
Awesome. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you to everyone who attended. I can throw things back over to Aaron from AIR.
Yes, just one final announcement that today's presentation was recorded and will be made available on SoundPath. A huge thank you to our partner in this endeavor, The Podglomerate, to Joni, Jeff, and Chris. Thank you so much to all of our panelists today, everyone who joined in. Thank you so much for all of your engagement, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much, everybody.